700 episodes done and we're still here. Like, we're still here, we're still running, the podcast is still going on. I am actually pretty surprised about this one. Like, when I think about it...
The royal penis is clean, Your Highness.
Okay. How do I do this? Like, I know this is an episode that was expected, but I feel like this is probably one of the most unscripted. Well, I did kind of have to do something about that, but for the most part, unscripted episodes that I've done. And you'd think that this is my first time doing it, as if I haven't done it like 6 other times, because we're on episode 700 episodes done and we're still here. Like, we're still here, we're still running, the podcast is still going on. I am actually pretty surprised about this one. Like, when I think about it, well, granted, I usually just produce episodes and shit. And yes, I know there's the episode count that I'll always have there. But I normally don't stop to think about just how many episodes I've done up until I get to times like this. Which is why this episode isn't like the usual episodes. And it's one of those ones that I know for a fact isn't the most interesting episode, so I don't expect it to get the most plays or anything. But for me, it's a milestone. Like, it's a celebration of a milestone that I would argue very few people in the podcasting world hit. And, managing to hit it is pretty good. It's a testament that I just produce a shit ton of content year on year. But all in all, I think I should have started this in a lot better of a way. So let me just try and kick off with a pretty nice intro, the one that most of y'all are used to, which is, welcome to the Breakdown Podcast, where I talk about love, sex, and relationships from a guy's perspective, as well as a bunch of other guy shit. The man on the mic is Sir Denver B. This is episode 700, and it's nothing like what the other episodes usually are. For anyone who's listened to this podcast long enough, or for as many episodes, you probably know that the 100th episode that I do every single time is usually a little bit different. 100th. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, every 100th episode I do, I will not do it the same exact way I do every other episode. I'll always have a particular central theme, and I'll basically be talking about the past 100 episodes, if not even more than that. And, it's the same with this year. It is particularly the same. I do have a theme, and I will get to that in a bit. But before I get there, I want to start by admitting that this episode didn't even have too much prior thought. I basically remembered that I have to do something for episode 700, and it's basically on the day of recording, and I'm like, there hasn't been any prior thought. And I'm not saying this it's something that can't have been done. It's just every single 100th episode, I'll always kind of try to think back on it and be like, okay, so what am I going to discuss? What is it that I've noticed? What's the main central theme that I've noticed over these past 100 episodes that I feel I should probably talk about? And to be honest, maybe it's the fact that I've been a little bit busier with other aspects of my life, but it kind of just came at me, and I was like, oh, I have this episode I have to do, and I need to talk about the past 100 episodes. And to be quite frank, it's been a particularly interesting set of 100 episodes, if not more, and I feel like the theme this time is a little bit different from what it's been in a lot of the other 100th episodes, because it's been a different section of my life as well. So it's come with a couple of changes, and even on the podcast when I had promised a couple of changes, those also kind of came in. And actually, speaking of changes that I had promised, I will actually get into those right now. So in episode 600, I had promised that I would be doing interviews and I would get back into video, which I did for a bit. And I would like to come out and be like, oh, we've been doing so much video and I have a bunch of content ready to push out. But the truth of it is, I did it for a bit, and then I guess a bunch of life got in the way. I've had quite a number of changes happening to me over this time period. And as a result of that, it's affected my ability to go ahead and do video. For anyone that's tried to create video versus creating audio on its own, you know that doing video has a lot more complication in it and there's a lot more input so that you can get a single bit of output. So to be very honest, it's not that I've stopped doing video, it's just I've kind of put it in the back burner for a bit. Once I get a couple of things sorted, I will get back to doing video. And the interviews. I have wanted to interview quite a number of people and I still have them lined up, and it's just a matter of time. Once I get back to doing video, it will come with those interviews and it'll be yours to enjoy. All right. So let's hope and pray that I continue doing the podcast and I continue doing these interviews so that I can get more people and we can have more fun conversations, because the previous interviews were so much fun and I picked up quite a bit, and I'm sure you probably might have learned a little bit here and there. And I had a couple of interesting people on. So, that's a massive plus. But that said, I have been talking about change quite a bit over the past, 4 or 5 minutes, maybe 6, where I've been talking about how my life has been going through a couple of changes. And I wouldn't even say that it's like, I'm in a different season of my life, blah, blah, blah. Or that there's a new phase I'm in and, there's this spiritual growth I'm going. Like, I'm not about to feed you a bunch of mumbo jumbo. The long and short of it is I'm growing older. And with me growing older, there are some changes that are definitely going to happen in my life. There are changes that are going to happen in my lifestyle. And, even in terms of how I think and act and, approach certain things and handle responsibilities. So a couple of those changes, I've been experiencing them in real time, and in as much as, yes, I do continue trying to push out episodes almost every week, it's not like I am immune to some of those changes catching up. And as a result of that, I'd probably say if I was to sum up the past 100 episodes as well as the point in time that I'm in right now, I'd probably sum it up with one word, which is growth. There's a lot of growing that I have been experiencing, and there's a lot of growth that now I am seeing I have gone through over the years. From the guy that started a podcast back in July of 2019, so yeah, we are 7 years old now, all the way till like the person that I am right now, I look back and I see a ton of growth that I've experienced over the years. The first couple of years had different themes and I was trying to get, some sort of structure to the kind of content and the kind of person I was trying to be. And over the years, I've built more and more on it. I've learned a couple more things here and there. I've also experienced a little bit more life here and there. And that has added to the kind of content that I push out. And as a result of that, my ideas, my ideologies, my beliefs have adjusted a little bit here and there. Some for the positive, some in other directions. And I'd say that as I've grown and experienced life, a lot of those ideologies and beliefs have started to solidify a lot more and have also kind of informed the reasons why guys do things at a certain age versus others, and so on and so forth. And, one of the interesting things about like growing while doing this podcast is there's a lot of things that I would talk about back in the day that as I experience kind of add more substance to what it was that I was saying. And this isn't me trying to be like, I was ahead of my time and I used to say this shit. But it's more like back then I would talk about things like, for example, when you're growing older, your ideologies, your beliefs, they kind of solidify a lot more and it becomes harder for you to be a little bit more flexible to things, which can make dating harder. And I'm experiencing a lot more of that. Like my ideas, my beliefs, they are solidifying a lot more. So it's not like I am being as flexible as I probably used to be back when I was starting the podcast at 22, 23 years old. So it's an interesting shift in that now what I'm interested in is taking a lot more of a solid shape. What it is that I want to do, or the person I'd want to date, is taking more of a solid shape. And while it confirms what it is that I had spoken about earlier in previous episodes, it also does draw on why it is that such things happen. And, that's a particularly interesting journey to be a part of and to look at in hindsight. It definitely does show you how, you might think that you know a lot, you might think that you're grown and you mature and shit. Then at some point over time you realize, shit, I was a kid back then. I barely knew fuck all. I thought I knew a lot back then, but now over time, I feel like whatever I knew back then wasn't even all that much. And I bet over the years, I'm going to look back at myself right now and be like, yeah, that guy, he knew a bit, but he doesn't know as much as, he knows at, like whatever time it is that I choose to look back on this. And it's a very interesting journey, but it kind of does tend to test the philosophy of how I was doing my episodes from back in the day, because, and I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast or I just mentioned it to a bunch of other people, but whenever I was doing my content, one of the reasons why I was never trying to be like the type that would lie or would, just try to be all about the hype or anything is because I was always saying that I want the content that I put out to be something that I can still stand on 5, maybe even 10 years from when I've done the episode. And even though my thoughts and my viewpoints might have changed, at least I'll be able to track back to the point in time that I was in when I was producing that content. And when you look at it, it's a fairly lofty ideology to kind of live by. It's a fairly lofty philosophy to stand by. But throughout the test of time, I would like to think I don't entirely speak against a lot of the stuff that I still talk about. And I do think that a lot of the stuff that I've spoken about over the years is still relevant to this day. Now, could there be some viewpoints that I've changed? Probably. And don't get me wrong, I feel like one of the ones that I've flip-flopped on the most is going on the first date, who gets to pay on a date and shit like that. And I feel like that's a very tiny piece of a lot of the stuff that I talk about. But at least, whenever that discussion can come up, I can always look at the different viewpoints I've had and the reasoning behind each and every one of those. But all that said, all of this is just to reiterate that I have gone through quite a number of changes and I'll definitely continue going through other changes. So there's no saying where this road of life will go. There's no saying where, my mindset is going to take me or whether it's going to shift one way or another. A lot of this is just stuff that you grow and learn and unlearn and relearn. So, it's a journey that I started 7-ish years ago, and it's a journey that I continue to carry on. And in saying that, I believe that my promise still remains the same. I will continue to deliver the best content that I can at all times, every single time. And to say that I know where this journey will go, where it stops, or if there's a place where it stops would probably be a lie. But you know what? The best part of a journey isn't really the destination, it's the journey itself. So, if you can stick on this ride with me and we continue doing this content, this stuff that we love, whether we get to shift, different perspectives, whether we get to shift in content styles, if you can continue sticking around, then maybe, just maybe, you can watch yourself be a part of this journey and also enjoy it. Because, like I said, the best part of the journey isn't really the destination, it's the experience throughout the journey. And in saying that, I would like to thank you for being a part of 700 episodes of the Break Time podcast. I have changed names, I have changed topic points, I have changed stances in some cases here and there, but this podcast has kept going on, and I am happy that you have been a part of it in some way, shape, or form. If you've listened to an episode, if you've listened to a couple of episodes, if you've listened to most episodes, hell, if you've listened to every single one of the episodes, I salute you, I thank you. You listening and giving feedback has been a big part of why a guy in his room continues to talk on a microphone, wondering if he is listened to, basically just pushing content out into the internet, hoping that someone will resonate with that content, hoping that someone will like the content, and also hoping for some feedback. You are a part of this journey, and I salute you. I thank you for making it very worthwhile. Like I said earlier, I will continue to do my best to produce content that I hope you will get to love as much as possible, if not every single time. And I hope you stick around. I hope you stick around up until we do episode 750, episode 800 and beyond. Should we go that far, God willing, then I hope you're still a part of the journey and you do not fall off or forget where the journey has taken us and where we've come from. And as always, while I continue to thank you so much, I do have to get some version of a conclusion. And for this one, I'm going to rephrase what it was that I said in episode 600, where I said that I thought I was going to stop doing this 100 episodes ago. And considering that we are on episode 700, I will say it like this. I thought I was going to stop 200 episodes ago, but here we are. So let's make the best of it, shall we? And with that said, I want to thank you so much for listening, like I've thanked you all the many other times across this episode. Thank you so much. And as always, I'd like your thoughts, I'd like your feedback, I'd like your comments, I'd like your suggestions. So the social media is where it's at. On IG, it is at the Breaktime_podcast. On Facebook, it is at the Breaktime Podcast. On X, it is at Bagaka the D. And on Bluesky, it is at the breaktimepod.bsky.social. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.
But what I believe is that if you put a pastor and a prostitute in one room, one is likely to convert the other.